Thank you for tuning into this edition of Business Daily. I'm Lee Ji-yoon. We have a lot of stories lined up for you today, so let's get started with a look at the day's highlights. After rising for 2 months in a row, consumer sentiment in Korea inched lower in September amid ongoing corporate restructuring. The idea of giving people a flat income regardless of employment or social status is gaining momentum globally. We talk about what universal basic income is and how it may help tackle inequality and poverty. Korea's consumer sentiment this month dipped slightly from last month, returning to a downward trend. The latest figures by the country's central bank show that domestic and international economic variables have some people worried. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
Korea's consumer sentiment slowed a bit in the month of September, logging the first drop in 3 months. The Bank of Korea said Thursday that this month's index came in at 101.7, down 0.1 of a point from a month earlier. The figure had fallen to the 98-point range in the last month of the second quarter before climbing to reach 101.8 in August, an 8-month high. A reading above the 100-point mark indicates that optimism outweighs pessimism. Within the composite index, figures that gauge sentiment towards current and future economic conditions respectively dropped 2 points on month. Sentiment towards employment also fell 3 points from a month earlier. This overall downward trend comes on the back of looming concerns over the government-led corporate restructuring drive of Korea's ailing shipping and shipbuilding firms, with uncertainties from the U.S. Federal Reserve also weighing in. One notable change from this month's consumer survey is that the Bank of Korea disclosed figures to the first decimal place for the first time since 1995, when data was initially compiled. The central bank says it hopes the detailed index will help more accurately gauge consumer sentiment and add more credibility. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
Korea's biggest sales festival kicks off today. In addition to department stores and major retail outlets nationwide, some 200 makers of home appliances and even automakers are offering consumers hefty discounts. Korea Sale Festa is also making use of cultural events to boost the shopping spirits of tourists from home and abroad. The Culture Ministry says 55 events, large and small, ranging from fashion shows and parades to theatrical plays, are being prepared across the country. 17 traditional markets, including Seoul's famous Namdaemun Market, will also hold cultural events alongside their big sales. These will include international food festivals and cooking contests. And on Friday, a K-pop concert will be held in Seoul, marking the start of the cultural festivities. Korea Sale Festa will run through the end of next month. LG Electronics' latest smartphone, the V20, has hit the shelves here in Korea on this Thursday. The tech giant said its 5.7-inch handset will initially be available to Korean customers through the nation's 3 major mobile carriers and plans to expand to overseas markets down the line. With a price tag of roughly $820, the multimedia-focused smartphone comes with high-end audio and camera functionalities and comes in 3 colors: titanium, silver, and pink. OPEC has agreed to slash output for the first time in 8 years after 2 days of round-the-clock talks in Algeria. Oil prices got a healthy bump, news of the surprise breakthrough. Our Park Jong-ung has this report.
The oil cartel has reached a consensus that unless they cut production, petroleum prices will not likely go back up. 2 sources within OPEC were cited by the media as saying that the oil-producing nations are estimated to collectively reduce their output to 32.5 million barrels a day from the current 33.24 million. But the exact reduction amount won't be announced until at least November 30th, when OPEC meets again in Vienna, and after a committee is formed to study how to carry out the cuts. Oil prices surged upon news of OPEC's decision. Brent crude spiked almost 6%, nearing $49 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate jumped 5.4% to slightly over $47, its highest point in 3 weeks. The meeting in Algiers didn't include Russia, which is the world's largest producer of crude oil. Although it isn't a member of OPEC, sources say Moscow has been involved in talks about jointly reducing production. The 14-nation cartel controls over a third of the world's crude output, and slumping oil prices have been a massive toll on their economies. Park Jong-hong, Business Daily.
U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen has admitted there's no fixed timetable for raising rates as the U.S. economy continues its recovery. Testifying before the House Financial Services Committee on Wednesday, Yellen said the current pace of labor market improvement, with employers adding about 180,000 new jobs a month, calls for a gradual increase in interest rates. She added that many of her Fed colleagues indicated in their recent projections that it would be appropriate to raise interest rates once this year if no significant new risks arise. Yellen's testimony follows the Fed's decision last week to hold rates steady at 0.25% to 0.5%. Subway workers in Seoul have agreed to end a strike that had been in place since Tuesday. But a nationwide railway strike is still in place, prompting the government to take action. The Vice Minister of Transport, Choi Jung-ho, said in an emergency briefing on Thursday that the government will add extra freight trains and cargo trucks to minimize the impact on the country's distribution network. The operation rate of freight trains has slumped to 30%, raising concerns about the impact it may have on the industrial sector. The government said it will add 4 freight train runs from Gyeonggi-do province to the southern port city of Busan and also waive highway tolls for substitute transport vehicles. It's also reviewing the possibility of adding 100 military trucks if the strike drags on. And on another massive walkout, unionized workers of Korea's top automaker Hyundai Motor have started another 12-hour strike on Thursday after failing to reach a compromise on wage talks. The union has held 22 partial strikes during months-long negotiations, leading to a full walkout on Monday. Now, this has caused the largest production disruption in the company's history, with damages nearing an estimated 121,000 cars, or roughly $2.5 billion. Given the massive impact the strike may have on the economy, the Korean government is thinking about exercising its emergency mediation right. The measure would stop the strike for 30 days, and the National Labor Relations Commission would start mediation procedures. Failure to reach an agreement would then put an arbitration proceeding into motion. The idea of having an unconditional universal basic income for everybody has been around for quite some time. But recently, countries around the world are looking to experiment with this idea, as they believe this could be the way to reduce poverty and inequality while pursuing new opportunities. Let's take a closer look.
A universal basic income suggests that all citizens, whether they're in or out of work, rich or poor, get a flat-rate unconditional income. Supporters of the idea believe that a basic income would help fight poverty and inequality while guaranteeing a dignified life for everyone. Back in June, Switzerland became the first country to vote on this radical income plan, but 77% of Swiss voters rejected the proposal, which would have given the entire population a sustainable income. Although no other country has voted on such a plan since then, the idea has been picking up momentum globally. Finland is looking to test the idea for 2 years starting next year, while the Netherlands is also running trials in multiple cities. Cities in Canada and Spain are also looking to give it a trial run. Here in Korea, economists have discussed a universal basic income plan and whether it could be the right option to fight income inequality. Most recently, it's been brought up in the 20th National Assembly, raising the question, how feasible is the idea of rolling out a basic income in Korea?
And for more on this, Professor Kim Taewon from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
So I think most Koreans are still unfamiliar with this concept of universal basic income. But then this concept is not something that's completely new. So can you explain to us the basic concept and the theory behind it?
Well, basic income is a form of social security that everyone, like every citizen or residents of the nation, receives certain amount of money from government on regular basis, regardless of their income level. So that kind of philosophy has been long-standing between European economists. They have a very strong belief that government is responsible for maintaining basic living standard. But that was not accepted by US and UK's mainstream economists because their philosophy was there's no payment without working. But recently there was a research that basic income program has effects on economic growth.
And because of that, and like we heard earlier, countries around the world are either considering this idea or putting it into test. Can you tell us more about this?
Well, actually, no country is implementing a basic income program in the country-wide level. There are quite a few local tests and in between many countries. For example, from rich side of the world, US, Germany, and quite a few European countries are implementing or testing this basic income program. But on the other side, from poor countries are testing at the local level. But the new trends of the basic income program from the United States is quite a few IT giants like Google's and Tesla are running all different kinds of business from education to IT transportation. So their income and their profit should be more evenly distributed between people of the nation. That's the new concept of the basic income program.
So for countries and cities that are testing the basic income concept, what kind of effects have they seen from it so far?
Well, from quite a few examples that we have seen before, there's no clear evidence for that about the effects of the basic income program.
Okay.
From rich country, we have quite a few negative examples. For example, the American Indians are receiving basic income for like 100 years. But it is reported that American Indians' income and their motivation to work, and they're more addicted to alcohol and drugs. So that's the negative example. But from poor countries, like Namibia and India, the basic income program is very successful by providing basic income. Like they are improving their nutrition and education and workers' quality.
Now, at this point, we're wondering how would countries pay for this plan? I mean, where would the money come from?
Well, for the poor countries, most of the money for basic income program is donated by nonprofit social organizations.
Okay.
For the rich countries like United States and European countries, it is financed by government local tax and big companies' donations.
Now, there are critics of this plan, and they have raised concerns about the overall cost and also whether it would deter people from seeking work altogether. So what are your thoughts on this? And also, how would adopting the basic income plan affect the overall economy, a country's overall economy?
Well, the opponents of the basic income plan really criticize the plan because it destroyed the motivation of working. And they are also arguing that it comes with unexpected consequences like fast increasing immigration and distorted tax system and pay system. But on the other side, the supporters of the basic income program argues that it comes with improved quality of the labor because workers invest for themselves for higher income, like for the higher education level.
So where would you stand on this then?
Well, that's a tough question, but I will be on the supporter side.
Oh, okay. For what reasons?
Because it is very important because poor workers' income is maintained at a certain level. They have very strong incentive to improve their workers' quality by going to graduate school at the higher level. And that's going to be one of the most important human capital investment.
All right. Well, if Korea, I know this is kind of far-fetched, but if Korea decides to adopt this plan, then how should it be run? And also, would it be feasible for the Korean economy, you think?
Well, in terms of the cost for implementing basic income plan, if every Korean is receiving like 1 million won every year, it's going to be 50 trillion won every year. That's going to be 14% of the total budget of the government.
Oh, wow.
So it is not expensive at all. So before starting before implementing basic income plan, it is necessary to get a general consensus of the people. And also, it is very important that basic income plan should be widespread to every workers.
We'll see if this happens in the very, near future or far future, but we'll see what happens here.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.